Welcome to the Reloading Studio tutorial. I thought today it'll be less of a tutorial and more of a walkthrough. Just a general use of Reloading Studio without any how-tos, so to speak. So after you install and activate the application, there'll be a red button which says Start Here. It'll be at the top over here. You'll click it and you'll be looking at this screen. So where to from here? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to define all of our components, and this is rifles, cases, bullets, and so on. So rifles, I'm not going to bore you with data entry. I hate watching people type. I'm sure you do as well. So I'm just going to go through my testing data set. So the first thing we're going to do is we have to add a rifle, and it's reasonably straightforward. So I've selected one that I already defined, and you give it a name, you enter all the properties, and what you can do is you can also assign it a scope and a suppressor. You can do this from the menu on your left hand side, or you can go directly to those screens. So sighting systems, I can open a new tab, just sighting systems, I can enter all my data, and I can click save. I'll then go back to the rifle, I'll open the suppressor field, do the same, click save, come back to the rifle and assign a suppressor. And that's pretty much it for the rifle. Next we have handguns, shotguns, very similar to rifles, sighting systems which we've seen, suppressors, same deal. I'm just going to close these tabs just to make it nice and neat. Next one is projectiles. Now projectiles is again similar. You can add images, you can add data, you can even go and add individual data. So you can start adding, if you're loading for precision, you can start adding exact dimensions and you'll get automatic calculations. Likewise for weight and averages. Cases is probably the most complicated form. Very similar. Also has additional data fields if you want to dive into minute details. Shotgun hulls, if you're reloading for shotgun. Powders, we add a propellant in here, primers, wads, and add factory ammo. So factory ammo is more or less just a convenience feature. It doesn't really feature in cartridge development screens. All it is just to help you catalog your ammo or factory ammo. After we're done here, we can click on Cartridge Development and we'll be looking at this screen here. So this blue line represents a firearm. If you want to create a new firearm, or a generic load if you will, which is not associated to anything, you can use this button here. You'll see the unknown. We can add a development group. We can say all my 1911s. We can give this this group a name, range ammo, and we can start adding new recipes at this stage. So very similar to an established firearm, if you will. In fact, 1911s should have been under handguns, not in rifles. So we're just going to delete this. And once we're in the rifle, once we've added a development group, we can start defining recipes, and this is it. So we can add a new batch, or we can clone. Have to add something in here. Or we can clone a recipe. And that's about it. That's the general workflow of sort of top-level components. Now we get to the interesting part. We get to define a recipe. We give a recipe a name. We pull in all the components that we want to use. If we're using shotguns instead of rifles or handguns, we will actually We'll actually see a few more details like wad node and some bushing information that you may want to fill in. Other than that, we can go back to rifles, back to our recipe, and go through these fields. So we have charge weight, that's pretty important. A thrower adjustment, so if you're using a thrower, this is a field where you can actually add a note which marker you've stopped at, or just to guide you back to the same position. A reference is a website, a manual, a page number, just something to remind you where you got your charge weight. You can say an A, or you can say derived from earlier experiments. It's whatever you choose. Assembly, this stage you can add overall length and how many cartridges you've loaded, or you can go a little bit more detailed and actually start adding overall length. You can say I've measured off the ogive rather than the entire cartridge, and you'll get automatic calculations. And if you're loading for precision, you can add individual overall length as well. After you've shot your ammo, we can fill the performance. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Best group and distance to target, or if you want to go a little bit more detailed, we can go into velocities, group sizes, and directions and sighting notes. So if you didn't zero your scope for this cartridge, you can add a note here or what kind of adjustment it needs for this cartridge. Finally, we have files, notes. Notes is free form. You can just type in here. Files is where you can drag or you can add files, just images, PDF files, photos, whatever you'd like to remind you what you've done here. And weather. So this is your environment conditions if you want to record this. And that's about it. That's the overall workflow of Reloading Studio. So this lets you catalog your recipe, your performances, decide which recipe is the best, and manage components including firearm maintenance logs, factory ammo, view your loaded ammo, and finally the search. So once you've developed a lot of loads and you want to find something specific, you don't remember what it's called perhaps, you have this search console to help you with actually navigating through your data. And that's about it. Thanks.